For most Americans, that familiar sound of the recycling trucks on pickup day is a routine part of life. But in many towns, recycling programs are struggling.
People have been told for decades now that recycling is a really important thing that they can do to help protect the planet and clean up the environment. So people get very frustrated when they go to their local transfer station and find out that there isn't a way for them to recycle something.
This is Rona Cohen at CSG East. Last month, I caught up with a Maine state lawmaker who's on a mission to revitalize recycling.
Nicole Grohoski, state representative for House District 132 in Maine.
For many programs, the problem started in 2018 when China stopped importing recyclables from the United States. In Maine, rising costs for recycling have led some programs to send packaging waste to landfills or incinerators. Grohoski said that taxpayers shouldn't be saddled with the costs of managing packaging waste.
Because they have no say over how much packaging comes on the products they're interested in buying and what it's made out of.
Last July, Governor Janet Mills signed a bill Grohoski sponsored, making Maine the first state to require producers to pay for the cost of managing the packaging waste associated with the products they sell.
So this puts the burden on corporations to be responsible for the cost of disposing of packaging and also gives them a financial incentive to make less packaging and better packaging in the first place.
It's based on the concept of extended producer responsibility, which means that producers should bear the environmental costs associated with their products throughout their life cycles. Maine is unique in that it's the only state with a framework in place requiring environmental officials to identify products for a producer responsibility approach. There are 9 such other laws on the books, covering products including electronics, batteries, paint, and carpets. Back in 2019, state environmental officials had identified packaging waste as ripe for a producer responsibility program. Under the new law, manufacturers will pay into a fund annually based on the weight of their products sold into a state.
These are brand owners, companies like Amazon, Walmart, Kimberly-Clark, Procter & Gamble.
That's Sarah Nichols. She's the Sustainable Maine Director at the Natural Resources Council of Maine. Nichols described a system that wasn't working. Currently, it costs 2/3 more to recycle packaging than to toss it into a landfill.
Transformative is a perfect word for this type of law. I always use this example describing why I think this works, that it involves my kids. So, I have 2 children and they're very messy. They're young boys. And, as soon as they got old enough, I expected them to clean up their own messes. And lo and behold, there's less mess in the first place because they know that they're the ones that have to pick it up and not me. So it's the same idea here.
But Nichols said that some industry players weren't so keen about the legislation. Critics warned that an EPR system would raise costs for consumer products. But Nichols said those claims weren't backed by data from other successful programs.
What we've observed in all of these dozens of other jurisdictions that have the EPR for packaging program in place, that there is zero correlation between EPR for packaging program and the cost of goods in that jurisdiction.
In fact, data compiled over the years from programs around the world helped inform Maine's effort. Germany was the first country to implement EPR for packaging back in 1991. And by 2024, every EU member country will be required to have a program. A few Canadian provinces have also embraced various versions of the policy. Here's Grohoski.
Just right here in Maine, we have Quebec as a neighboring province. They are able to offer 99% of their residents curbside recycling, and they certainly have rural areas like we do in Maine. And they are paying less per capita than we're paying right now through our current inefficient system for their program and getting twice the recovery rate.
Quebec's EPR program for packaging is the oldest in Canada. It was launched in 2005. I reached out to Philippe Cotte, who works at the quasi-government agency that manages the program, to ask him about some of those impressive numbers. So nearly every household has curbside pickup? Is that correct?
That's correct. 99% of households in Quebec have access to curbside pickup. And honestly, the ones that don't are usually not accessible by road.
But Cotte says there's room for improvement, for better consumer education, and for investments in infrastructure and end markets to encourage more circularity, so that the processed materials make their way back into new products and not a landfill. Currently, municipalities manage collection, transportation, and sorting of recyclables, but they don't have any say about what happens to them next.
Whatever happens after the sorting stage is not for them to have visibility on, because their contracts don't allow them to see what's going to happen beyond. Material could go to Asia, could go elsewhere, could be landfilled. Very difficult for them to have any leverage on what happens afterward.
Currently, Quebec's program is undergoing reform to give the 1,700 producers who pay into it more control over how the system is run, and to also establish performance targets for collection and recycling. The hope is to create greater efficiencies and to also give manufacturers more access to the recycled content to encourage its use in new products.
Right now, it always goes to the highest bidder. The highest bidder is overseas. There's not much manufacturers can do right now, but just see that the material is shipped overseas. In this case, we could change that if manufacturers want to have access to that material first, because they're being collected in the province that they market products in.
The reform also aims to harmonize the collection system among the province's nearly 1,000 municipalities. Collectively, they have 500 different recycling contracts that don't always collect the same products. The plan is to have uniformity and encourage economies of scale among the province's municipal recycling facilities. Quebec's experience could be instructive for U.S. states that are considering implementing their own programs. Last year, about a month after Maine's law was enacted, Oregon became the second state to approve EPR packaging legislation. The details are slightly different, but the concept is the same. Currently, the Maryland legislature is considering another EPR bill, one that would give a greater role to manufacturers. I asked Kate what advice he would offer officials as they move forward.
Think beyond just making sure to secure the budgets for recycling. Make sure that your piece of regulation or piece of legislation truly enables circular economy and helps the private sector, who's a key player in this process, have the actual leverage that they're looking for to make the system work.
This summer, Maine environmental officials will launch an 18-month stakeholder process to work out the details of their program. Representative Grohoski said that, among other things, she's looking forward to getting new data about what's actually in Mainers' trash and how much more of it could be collected and recycled compared to now.
One of the most exciting pieces of this bill in my mind is just getting information about where we are, and then we can set really solid benchmarks going forward from that information.
Basically, to build a recycling system that truly benefits taxpayers and the environment. This is Rona Cohen from CSG East. Thanks for listening.